welcome to the Black MS Narrative Project. I'm Victoria Campbell, co-founder.
And I'm Mimi Cowens, co-founder. Oh my gosh.
We're
here.
here.
Y'all, okay. This is our first time meeting in person.
Everything else has been virtual, phone calls, Marco Polos,
StreamYard,
text message.
But we're here.
Finally, yes. It
Together.
feels so good.
It does.
It's so natural.
It does.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So y'all, we are the Black MS Narrative Project podcast. And we are a storytelling collective for African Americans impacted by MS. And so, what does that mean? What does that mean?
So we recognize that storytelling has a very unique and powerful ability to help people heal, not just the ones telling their stories,
Right.
but the people who hear it and can relate and can pull from that the pain and the progress, the healing, and that is our desire.
And the cohesiveness, right? And the things that they have in common with the storyteller.
Yes.
And so Victoria and I both are MS thrivers and MS survivors.
Yes.
And collectively, at the same time, in different spaces, Pennsylvania, Raleigh, North Carolina, God breathed this idea to us simultaneously, and we came together. And that's amazing.
It truly is.
And so she drove to Raleigh yesterday.
Yeah.
She and her husband for us to meet and have this moment, and we're so excited. So excited.
Yes, it's been amazing. And you know, my husband, just the fact that it was our anniversary, we're celebrating our 12th anniversary, and the fact that we are here, we're together, and he has just been just so amazing. I can't wait for you to meet him. He's gonna come on here and share his story as a caretaker for 12 years. He's been there with me for the majority of this journey. And this is just the beginning of, I'll say, us starting to tell our stories, because
Today, we're going to tell Victoria's story.
Yes.
That was a perfect segue to where we're about to land. As guests come on this show, we are going to interview them and have them tell us and tell you their MS journeys. And we thought it was very appropriate that we start that off by hearing our individual journeys. And today, I am going to interview Victoria and give you all a little bit of a snapshot of what I already know to be true, and that she's amazing. And I may even learn some things today that I didn't know. So this is going to be discovery for all of us. But the focus of our podcast today is this beautiful young lady and her MS journey. So you ready?
I am ready.
Are you ready?
Yes, I feel that this is going to be so healing for me, because there's a lot of my story that I have not shared or people haven't asked. And so I'm looking forward to what I'm able to uncover.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's jump in. First and foremost, you were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at a young age, which is very rare. So tell us the age that you were diagnosed and what was going through your mind when you heard the words, "You have MS."
Yes, so in 2008, I was diagnosed with CIS, which is actually clinically isolated syndrome, I believe. And that's really just the first occurrence of MS symptoms and plaques on the brain. It's not until the second exacerbation that it's really fully diagnosed as multiple sclerosis. But at 19, when I received this diagnosis, my neurologist, not the best bedside manner, said, your life will never be the same. And I thought, you're right. It will never be the same. I'm going to, there were so many things I was doing in college because I thought I needed to do them. I found myself releasing a lot of things that I thought were important that suddenly weren't. And so
What year were you in college?
I was a freshman,
You were a freshman.
or I was in between my freshman year and my sophomore year.
Okay.
Yes, and so I was given that opportunity to recognize that if my life wasn't going to be the same, then I needed to decide what it was going to look like.
So what were the symptoms that you were having that led you to a neurologist and then ultimately this diagnosis of CIS?
Yeah, so I'd actually been having some really odd symptoms for a while. I had some pain and discomfort in my skin, like my skin hurt. I didn't know why, but wearing clothes, my earring on my neck, my blinking hurt, something was off about just the left side of my body. Like literally draw a line, just the left side. And it would be faint, and I would ignore it. I would think, oh, I danced too hard. I was a psychology and theater double major in college. I didn't get enough rest, or I slept wrong. And middle school, I would say, was the first time I ever experienced that. But, just kind of kept trucking, kept moving along.
So here you are, 19. And in hindsight, if you're honest, some of those symptoms you started feeling in middle school.
Yeah.
But it's funny when you said the word odd, I kind of chuckled because honestly, when it comes to MS, that's the only way to describe it. Your symptoms is what's wrong. How did you know you had MS? I just felt strange. I felt off. I felt odd. We'll get to that. But everybody's journey toward diagnosis is different.
Yes.
Okay. So here you are, 19. You're a double major of dance and
psychology
and theater. You're a dancer, you're an actress, and you're like, you know what? I felt something weird. Maybe I did something in rehearsal. Maybe I danced too hard. And so you ignored it.
I did.
Like we all do.
I did.
You ignored it. And so what was the point where you couldn't ignore it anymore? What happened?
Yeah, so in the summer, I started working at a summer camp, and it was hot, and that heat caused those symptoms to just get worse, right? And I started feeling new things. My balance started being off. I started having some visual issues, and that's when I came home and I told my mom, I have to go to the doctor, and we have to advocate, right? So at that time, right, I'm just thinking we have to go and tell him I'm not leaving until we find an answer.
Okay.
And so
because leading up to that, you really weren't getting any answers.
I wasn't. They were saying rest.
At one point, did you get your first MRI?
Yeah, so I had gotten an MRI in middle school, actually, because I was having really bad headaches. And I don't remember the results from that. I don't know if they were conclusive at all. But the MRI that led to the diagnosis of CIS was when I was 19, when I was still working at that summer camp. And that's the one where the doctor told me your life will never be the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're told your life will never be the same. But that's about it. And you're like having increased symptoms because overheating with MS is not a good thing. And you're like, something is wrong with me. We have got to go back to the doctor. I need answers. Did you get those answers?
Yes. So the answers were, you have CIS. You need to start medication right away. And they put me on Rebif. I don't know if you've heard of it. That's a three times a week injection. And they told me this won't heal you, but it will hopefully stop any further lesions. So I took this medication that I was supposed to inject in my body 3 times a week in college. And I went to the study abroad office and I spun a globe and said, let's go here. I wanted to go to Greece, but they were having some governmental issues, some stuff going on. So I spun it again, landed on Turkey, and a couple months later, I was studying abroad in Turkey, and I felt like I had some control, right? All the control that I felt I lost, I felt like this was me taking control of my life, doing something that I wanted to do. So I was in Turkey. We traveled a lot. I studied I took spring break in Egypt, which was amazing. And I came back and I felt really good.
So you said, I'm not going to let this diagnosis stop me
Yes.
from continuing my education, studying abroad, doing all the things I ever wanted to do. I'm on this new medication. Okay, I'm feeling better in my body. I can handle it, and did. And so then when you came back, when did CIS become MS?
Yes, so I felt really good for some time, for several years. And my husband, well, at the time, who was my boyfriend, we actually met the year that I was diagnosed. Excuse me. And the time that it switched to MS was after we were married. We had been married about a year. My husband had deployed. He's in the Army. And he came back. And when he came back, I was switching schools because while he was gone, I was traveling from Fort Campbell, Kentucky to Nashville, Tennessee, which was about an hour commute.
Are you still in college at this point?
No.
You've graduated.
I've graduated.
So let's fast forward. So from 19 through the end of college, you're dealing with your CIS diagnosis. You complete school, you're fine, okay?
For the most part.
For the most
part. Things were manageable.
Things were manageable.
Yes.
Okay? So from 19 to about what, 22, okay? You've met who we know to be the love of her life. And she knew it then, okay? Their love story is beautiful. So from 19 to 22, you're managing your CIS. You get married. And then something happens.
Yes.
Okay? That something that happens is CIS becomes MS. Okay. So take us to that moment.
Yes.
Take your time.
There was about 2 months where I started feeling changes. I was a lot more clumsy. I was teaching full time, and I found that I was getting headaches more, and then my eyes started to get really blurry, and that progressed. And then I was starting my first day at a new school that was closer to home, and the first day I decided to take a nap in the car because I was exhausted.
Not tired.
Exhausted. So I took a nap in the car, and when I opened my eyes, I could not see. I couldn't find my phone, and all I could do was pray. God, nobody knows I'm here. I could be in here for hours. I just, all the thoughts. I was afraid, and so I closed my eyes and I prayed, and I fell back asleep. And when I opened my eyes again, I could see enough. It was just extremely blurry, but I could see enough to locate my phone and went to get out of the car, and I fell out of the car.
Oh my God.
And so I'm stumbling back into the building.
First day of school.
First day of school at a new school. I just remember saying, help me. And, I don't even know what happened between then and Brad, my husband, came to pick me up and took me to the ER. They thought I had a stroke. And I couldn't finish sentences. I could not communicate what was happening to me. But my husband, we talk all the time, and he, of course, having been aware of my diagnosis since we met, was able to explain to them just what I'd shared with him just over those past 2 months. Long story short, they did another MRI. They did a lumbar puncture. Those are spinal taps. And no fun, but I'm grateful for them because they really get you answers. And that was my prayer.
That's what you wanted.
I need answers.
Yeah.
And that's when CIS became MS.
So you're a brand new teacher at a new school. you're in your newlywed years. You have this episode where you're so fatigued that you have to go to your car and take a nap. Your eyesight is gone, and all you can do is pray. And then you get this diagnosis that you have MS. What is going through your mind at this time concerning your future with your husband and your career?
Oh, wow. I immediately I was afraid Brad was going to leave me. I was afraid that it was too much for him to handle, for me to handle. I knew I could not go back to work because I couldn't walk. I needed physical therapy. I needed a lot of support. They put me back on the same exact medication, which now I know what didn't make sense. Clearly it wasn't working. Clearly it didn't stop the progression, but they decided to put me back on the same exact medication. And to clarify, this was my second neurologist. Now, every time we moved, I got a new neurologist.
Right.
And they often would say, well, let's leave you on this medication and see what happens. And it was a while before I finally said, it's not working.
What did they say that episode was called? Was it just, is that what's called a relapse? Or was that an exacerbation? What did they say was that happened?
Right. They said it was a relapse. It was a flare. It was a full-blown attack.
Attack. Okay. All right.
Right. And so at that time, I threw myself into prayer and just trying to understand why God? What is this? And what am I to do? And so all I could do was walk forward. My husband was, of course, reassured me that we would get through it together. He was scared, and I could see that. But I also know that he didn't want me to see that. He was my rock. So being, in this case, far from my parents, far from my family, having him walk through these beginning stages of multiple sclerosis, fully multiple sclerosis with me, was really brought us closer together. And he's seen me the weakest I've been.
At this point.
Right. Yeah.
Now, were you afraid that children, because I know a lot of doctors, especially if you're diagnosed early, they say, well, fertility might be an issue. Was that something that you all discussed?
Yes. So we did not discuss children until I had gone through physical therapy and really kind of bounced back almost fully. I still struggled a lot with fatigue, but I could, we PCS'd again to Germany.
What's PCS mean?
PCS, ooh, yes. There was a permanent change of duty station.
Okay.
So they moved us to Germany, which was a decision that we made because, again, my life will never be the same. Our lives will never be the same. Let's take full advantage of this opportunity. So we moved to Germany, where I had a relapse because of the stress of moving, where I had gotten optic neuritis.
Okay.
And the optic neuritis was pretty aggressive. I lost part of my visual field for a while. And so we get back to Germany, and then I bounce back again. And I just said, you know what? I'm feeling great. I have a new neurologist. He put me back on a Rebif.
Wow.
And I had a friend who had a newborn baby. Oh. And she asked us if we wanted to have kids. And that made us start to have that conversation more seriously. The doctors were saying, though, you can't be on this medication and
Be
have
pregnant.
you shouldn't. And if you get pregnant, you'll have to stop it. But they recommend that you stop it before you try to get pregnant. So there was this fear of, okay, I don't want to get pregnant and jeopardize the baby.
Right.
But I also don't want to come off this medication and potentially have another flare.
Right.
So what do we do? How do we do this? So
Decisions.
yes,
Right,
and it was really rough. But we met with my neurologist together. Brad and I together. We met with my primary care manager. We met with just anyone we could to help me see, okay, in my health, do you think this is a good time? Should I come off? When should I come off? How should I? All the things.
What did they say?
And so they said, listen, I had blood work, just all the stuff. Everything looks great. Why don't you give it a shot? Okay. I was still scared. We still waited a couple more months because I had this impending fear that something was going to happen. But long story short, we decided that it was time. And
what year was this?
This was 2015.
Okay. And then
14,
much to your
15.
surprise.
Much to my surprise.
Who came along?
My baby girl, Peyton.
And when was she born?
Yes, she was born January 2016. And it was funny because as soon as we came off the medication, I gave it some time to get out of my system, we were pregnant. So
doctors don't know everything.
Yeah.
Okay? They don't know everything.
They don't. And she's healthy. She's beautiful. I had just what is it? Eventless? It was an uneventful pregnancy.
Wonderful.
Where your immune system is supposed to calm down when you're pregnant. And it was.
So you probably
bliss.
felt the best you ever felt during this CIS-MS journey while you were pregnant with your first baby, right? And that's because the immune system, MS is a disease, an uncontrollable, unpredictable disease that it's an autoimmune disease that attacks the nervous system, that causes your nervous system to basically go haywire. Well, when you're pregnant, the body, and this is the wonder of our God, the body is not going to attack something it's growing. Your immune system is not going to attack this beautiful thing that it is about to birth. So you are now feeling the best you've ever felt in your life. Peyton comes along. When did you begin to feel your symptoms return?
3 months. She was 3 months old. And I was nursing. And I had another relapse. This one caused some permanent damage.
Yeah.
This time, I couldn't sit up. I couldn't walk. I couldn't sit up. Brad had to hold the baby to me so she could eat. And he carried me. He took me to the hospital, and I was in the hospital for, my goodness, I don't even remember how long. But again, I was still exclusively breastfeeding, and Brad would bring me the baby, and as my strength returned, I noticed that my right leg just was not keeping up. That's where that permanent damage took place, was in my right leg and my right foot, which I still have a bit of a drag, foot drop. Some doctors called it, but that was my experience with Peyton. And then right after the relapse, guess what?
You got pregnant again.
They put me back on the Rebif.
You're back on Rebif at this point. Okay, real quick before we continue on with that, you said something, and I wanted to go back to it. After the baby is born, 3 months later, you have one of the worst relapses you've had to date at that point. Because again, after you are done giving birth to something that the body created and the body protected, it goes back to and almost in overdrive, back to where we were
exactly
in this autoimmune journey. Are you still in Germany at this point?
Yes.
Okay, so you're still in Germany, away from family. You're from Pennsylvania. He's from Newport News. Who is your support system?
It was the other Army families that we had gotten really close with, and that I'm still really close with. Wow. We had to be there for one another because everyone is far away from family. 9 times out of 10, people are there, and we created our own family. Wow, we did, and so one of my best friends. And I hope she comes on the show and we can interview her.
Yeah,
That would be amazing. But had it not been for her and their support with us, with Peyton, those are her godparents, right? Because my best friend, I didn't share when we were talking about having a baby, prayed over my womb. And we had just an amazing worship session where we were strong for one another, and pulling on her strength, her lifting me up. I mean,
that's amazing.
Later.
So you're pregnant with Langston.
Yeah.
Do you go back to?
No. Not yet.
Oh, okay. So, you said you got pregnant immediately after.
That's after we got back to the States.
After you got back to the States. Okay. So welcome back to the Black MS Narrative Project. I'm Mimi Cowens, co-founder.
And Victoria Campbell, co-founder.
And we had to take a little break, which is okay. When it comes to this disease, we've learned, those of us who've been walking this journey for quite some time, that you have to honor your body.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And you have to listen to it when it says, take a break.
And respond quickly, too. I think there's a lot of times we try to push it or say, I should be able to. Don't should yourself.
Don't shoot yourself.
Don't should yourself.
And don't push yourself.
Yeah.
So Victoria needs to take a little break. And we took a little break. And now we're back. We're going to pick up her story where we left off. But before we do that, if you all are new to our channel and new to this podcast, we just want to say that the Black MS Narrative Project is a storytelling collective for African Americans impacted by MS.
Yes, we believe that storytelling and the arts are very healing for the storyteller as well as those that are listening and understand the journey, understand that part of the struggle.
Yeah, I mean, and the struggle is real.
Yeah.
For everyone who has MS, we all came to the conclusion of that journey in terms of our diagnosis, all in different ways. And sometimes being in community with somebody who is going through something that you're going through helps to heal you when you're hearing. Yes. Faith comes by hearing. When you're hearing that somebody else out there has been going through what you're going through. And if you feel like you don't have an answer, you feel like you don't know what to do, to just know that there's a community out there that supports you and understands is very important. So
yes, and then if you understand the struggle, because you can relate, you can celebrate what for some people might seem small. I walked up and down the steps by myself twice today. Right? Like,
yes!
Yay,
Me!
go girl.
Yay me!
Right, yay me. I still have energy.
Right.
Like, or here's one. Ooh, I woke up.
And I didn't have any pain.
Mm-hmm.
And that lasted for 5 hours. So guess what? I went and cleaned up. I went and folded some stuff. I went and did some things that I took advantage of because I didn't have any pain in my body. And ooh, this is what no pain feels like today. Ooh, let me go take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the little things that when you have MS, people take for granted. Just being able to walk a mile, walk 2 miles, walk 3 miles unassisted. And you have this beautiful cane.
Yes, my husband had went on Etsy and had this peacock cane made for me by a amazing artist in Italy. And I asked, he knows that I love peacocks. And the peacock has become our I was going to say our spirit animal.
Our spirit animal. I love it.
It's a huge part of our logo because of what it represents.
And our story, right?
Yes.
I mean, and y'all, if y'all listen to episode 1, if you didn't listen to episode 1, go back and listen to episode 1. And you will hear that we decided to use a peacock as the primary centerpiece for our logo because of what the peacock symbolizes. So I'm going to read to you what the peacock symbolizes, okay?
So before she reads this, it's interesting because the peacock, well, listen, I said all this in the first episode, right? When I was in the hospital, just as we were starting up the conversations around this podcast, I drew a picture of a peacock for me and recognizing what that did for me as Mimi's about to explain what it represents.
She sent me and texted me a picture of her sketch while she was in the hospital recovering from a pseudo-exacerbation in January. And I said, that's our logo, girl. That's it. And so we had this beautiful logo designed by a designer in the UK. And here is what peacocks symbolize: regrowth, rejuvenation, royalty, beauty, respect, community, integrity, love, passion, resilience, and strength. Okay? That's why we chose the peacock.
That's why.
Because everyone who is living with and thriving with MS is tapped into all of those things. Regrowth, rejuvenation. If you've been listening to Victoria's story, you've been hearing themes of that. Community. She's an Army wife, so she had to lean in and depend on other Army wives because she's in Germany going through the birth of her first child, okay? Love, integrity. We stand on integrity because we're women of God, we're women of faith, and we want everyone to know that people who come to us to tell their story, we're going to honor those stories, and we're going to take special care with those stories, okay? Resilience and strength. And this peacock
Was a present to me from my bae.
he made a charcuterie board for me, and this was in the center of it. And so I told him that when we shot our first podcast together, thank you, Milton, that we'd have this as our centerpiece, and for every other opportunity that we're together and we can shoot. So I think this might be a good time to maybe revisit the story. Okay. Again, we took our little break. If you like the content of what you are hearing today, please like, subscribe, and share. Okay. Like, subscribe, and share, because we want this to become a movement.
Yes, and hit that notification bell, because every time we do post a podcast or we have guests on
Or content
of any kind, you'll be the first to know.
Yeah.
And
that's on YouTube. That's on YouTube, the Black MS Narrative Project. Okay. Ready to jump back in?
I am.
Okay. So we're going to fast forward to you all moving back to the States.
Okay.
Peyton is 1 year old. Okay. You're back in the States, and then you get pregnant again with Langston.
Yes.
Now, y'all, again, doctors told her her life would never be the same. They tried to tell her that fertility, out the window. They tried to tell her this medication that we got you on is not recommended that you get pregnant. Her and her husband made a choice. They said, we're going to stop this medication. Okay? And they got pregnant. Baby was healthy. She felt healthier than she ever felt in her life. 3 months later, another relapse. Fast forward a year, now she's pregnant again. How was that pregnancy?
Oh man, you know, if you've ever been pregnant more than once, you know that pregnancies can be so drastically different.
Right.
And this one was so different. I actually wound up having a relapse while I was pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
And all the doctors could say to me was, this isn't supposed to happen. And I said, I know. It's not supposed to happen. But we had come back to the States, and I was staying with my parents while my husband was getting things in order. In Maryland, we were moving to Maryland. And as soon as we moved to Maryland, something wasn't right. He was away for schooling. He's now a recruiter at this point. He was working a lot. There was a lot on me with my baby girl, and then I was pregnant, and there was a day I, again, could not walk.
Oh.
And I called him and said, I need help.
Help me. Yeah.
I need help. So they wound up, I went to the hospital. They wound up giving me steroids while I was pregnant, which was something I did not want to do. I was very nervous for the baby, for myself. We always joke that my son is so strong. He's a steroid baby.
That's why. Super
Right.
strength.
And I had to have him a couple times. It was a very, very rough pregnancy.
Wow.
Very challenging. But again, I had community. I had connected with some amazing women through my church, through the Army. My husband was there. I was closer to family.
Yeah.
And so I had support.
Awesome.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So today,
How old are these babies? And how are you and Brad doing?
Yeah. So, you know, my son is 5. My daughter is 8. We're doing better. I'll say, you know, after I had my son, and because I had that relapse when I was pregnant with him, I fell into a depression.
Okay.
Fell into a depression, which then I had some postpartum depression that, and maybe we can talk more about that another time. But
MS and postpartum. Okay.
yes.
All right.
But we struggled through that season.
Okay.
And so then here comes COVID.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're just like everyone else, quarantined. And I will say that my go-getter, my life will never be the same. I get to choose what I'm doing. Attitude shifted drastically to I'm tired, I'm a victim, I can't do this, but I have to type of attitude. And that was very hard for Brad.
Okay.
Very, very hard for him. And so
Well, the pandemic. So I want to take a second. I want you to give yourself some grace. The pandemic was hard on all of us.
Yeah.
So you add to that a relapse and just dealing with MS, period. I know during COVID, right after George Floyd was murdered, I had the worst headaches I'd ever had in my life, and I ended up on Solumedrol. So COVID did something to all of us in the MS community, but we're just coming off postpartum with you. Now we're quarantined, stuck in the house, dealing with a disease no one has ever had to deal with in their life, not having immunity, worrying about our immunity, worrying about family.
Yes.
And so, of course, depression sets in. So give yourself some grace, okay? But you made it through that season.
Yes, yeah, they changed my medication.
They changed your medication,
Finally.
okay? So you're off Rebif at this point.
Yes, I'm off of Rebif.
So it took you all the way through COVID to get off Rebif?
Oh my goodness. No, they not all the way through COVID. I started once we moved to Maryland.
Okay.
There was a brief stint where I was on Copaxone, and that was so that I wanted to nurse Langston for at least a couple months. I believe in, I'm a breastfeeding specialist, and I believe in the power of mother's milk. I really do. And so, so I will say right before the pandemic, they switched me to Ocrevus. Okay. That's the infusion two times a year. And things were going great. I was not having those relapses. I was, other than the fact that we are quarantined and there's a lot of fear and frustration and those things as far as the progression of the disease, it was all halted.
Okay. So you have this shift. You go from, I can do this, to I can't do this. I'm tired. It is rough. It's a woe is me attitude, which is contrary to who you really are on the normal, under normal circumstances, right?
Right.
What is it that you do at this time when you say, I don't even recognize myself anymore? Who is this person? I want to get back to Victoria. Is that when you discovered the forum?
Not quite. Yeah, because what happened was I wore this beautiful mask.
Okay.
I wore this beautiful mask for some time, and toward the end of COVID, we were PCSing, moving again to Indiana, and I said, we really enjoyed just that process because we were on House Hunters, and we thought let's make this a thing, right? Maybe this move will reinvigorate just different parts of our lives. And long story short, I moved to Indiana. I started working full time again. This is the first time since that big relapse in when we first got married. So here we are in Indiana. I'm working full time at my daughter's school, and I got COVID. So I got COVID, and then that set off a flare. No, excuse me, that was not a full flare. It was a pseudo exacerbation or a pseudo flare, which was just, the aggravation of old symptoms. And, but it was intense. It was bad. So I wound up being away from my family for 30 days right before Christmas.
Because during COVID, you have to be in there by yourself.
I couldn't see I could see my kids through a window toward the end. I could see them through a window, and of course, video chat and whatnot. But that was rough because I had to go to acute rehab for 3 weeks. And
so you're going through a lot to rehab your body. And y'all heard me mention the Landmark Forum because that's where she and I met.
Yes.
And that was a wonderful experience. And I'll have you take us to when you joined the forum and how that possibly helped you dig out of this pit, right? Okay. So
yes,
where we are right now in post COVID times, at this point, we're on 21, 22-ish?
Yes.
Right after the height of COVID, like at 2020. Okay.
Yes. So then we made the decision that we need to move closer to family because I'm at the point where I'm not driving, and my husband was having a lot of trouble now managing me, 2 kids. They're both in school and daycare and appointments. Just it was rough. So we moved to Pennsylvania, and we stayed with my mother in her lower level, my mother and my stepfather. And it was very hard. My stepdad worked nights, So he sleeps during the day, but I have these two beautiful, rambunctious energy balls that just like want to be free. And it was rough for me to leave the house. It was also rough for me. We're living on the lower level. I have to take steps just to go. There was no bathroom downstairs too. I had to walk up 2 flights of steps just to shower. And that was
A lot.
a lot. There were days I just didn't because I couldn't. And, my mother took the Landmark Forum. Someone introduced it to her, and she told me, like, I think you should do this. And at the time, I'm thinking, I don't have the capacity for anything but to care for my kids and make sure I can get to and from where I need to be. But the Landmark Forum gave her the opportunity to basically pay for my deposit for me to go. I wound up getting a scholarship, and then that's where we met. That's where we had the opportunity to see each other virtually, not knowing that we had MS until it came up. Because that was my biggest thing. I told them, like, what do you mean I could live a life full of possibility, and here I am, like, I need help all the time. I can't, right? I realized that I was living in this victim mentality.
Right. Yeah.
And he challenged me, our forum leader challenged me to really look in the mirror, look at myself, and see me for who I was portraying myself to be. Not for who I am. That's not who I am. Exactly.
The mask,
What is this mask? What is this part you're playing?
We talk about masks a lot because MS is an invisible disease. And unless you tell somebody, because they see these two fly Black female creatives sitting here, they think, oh, there ain't nothing wrong with them, until you begin to dig a little deeper. Because again, we've learned not necessarily that we're sitting here behind a mask, right now, but there are different scenarios and times and places that we find ourselves in where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm really getting tired. My legs are getting heavy. I need to sit down, but I'm in this cocktail hour. There aren't a lot of seats, and you're looking for the nearest exit to go find something to sit down on. Those are the things that we go through while smiling. Oh my gosh, oh, hi. And you're just trying to just get out of there because you're hurting or you're in pain. So you're in this space. Your mom has introduced you to the forum. You're feeling like a victim. And the Landmark Forum is just one example of one of the things that you did to turn your life around. And the Landmark Forum basically is a 3-day, I guess, self-help opportunity where people are trying to move past some things that have them stuck. Okay? So Victoria came because she was having some things where she was stuck in her life. I had some things where I was stuck in my life. And so it helped us to acknowledge where we are causing the matter, acknowledge that if there are some relationships that are not serving us, then we have to own the fact that that person's just going to be who they are, and they ain't got nothing to do with me. And I am okay. And that's okay. They're okay. And we're just going to just be okay because I accept the fact that I can't control what this person is doing, and it should have no bearing on how I live my life. So there are things that we took away, right?
Yeah,
so
and I think the biggest...
dug out. You were able to dig out, right? And so now we find ourselves, this is 2022, I think was when we took the forum.
Yeah.
Where are you today? We're in 2024. Where are you today? Are you back to pre-victim mentality, Victoria, today?
Girl, I think recognizing that because of all of the things that I walked through, that I was learning and growing through, I am not the same. Okay. No. I want to say I'm better.
Yes.
I want to say that I'm stronger.
Come on, stronger, better. I'm better.
Yeah.
Come on, Marvin Sapp. We need to play that. I'm stronger.
Yes.
I'm wiser. Yes. I love it.
Yeah. So I want to say that you know, because even between then and now, I had another pseudo exacerbation. I walked through this healing journey with a woman that had a lot of holistic and truly eye-opening mindfulness.
Yes, mindfulness, yeah.
Just
Dietary changes.
yes,
yeah.
and she offered these things to me as another option. Again, something that Forum opened my eyes to. There are possibilities out there that aren't right in this bubble that you grew up in, right? And I can make a change. So I did. I did all the dietary, the mindfulness, the meditating, right? And I really did feel amazing.
And you were plant-based for a while.
Yes, I was, and I am 90% now still. But I was dancing. I started substitute teaching again. Had a pseudo exacerbation in January. That is the moment where I had to say, you know, God, I am still here, or I am back here.
Again.
After
I changed my diet, after I am now feeling like the best I've felt in a long time, I am partially vegan. I'm doing mindfulness practices. I'm dancing. I'm liturgical dancing at my church again. I'm doing all the things that I love to enjoy. And here I go, January 2024, I'm back in the hospital again. And then I called you.
Yes. Yes.
I said, you know what? We got to do this. It's time. I need the right partner. And guess what, y'all? She said, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. And like you watched the first episode again, we go into more detail, right? Because God was working on both of us at the same time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a coincidence at all.
No, it was divine.
Truly, truly divine.
So we're going to wrap up this episode. But before we go, I want you to look right into that camera and I want you to tell somebody who, just like you were, a rare case, diagnosed at 19. The average person usually doesn't get diagnosed with MS until like 30s, right? Like, 30s. I was diagnosed at 43. You got diagnosed at 19. You have lived a successful life. You're a successful mom, teacher, storyteller, creative, all right? You've given birth to 2 beautiful children when the doctor said that was impossible. To someone watching who may say, my life is over. I'm 19, I'm 20, I just found out I have MS. I don't know what to do. And I'm just going to give up. What do you have to say?
Listen, this diagnosis is not a death sentence.
That's right.
You are strong and you are able to live your life the way you want and need to. You may need to make a few changes here and there. Of course, you need to manage and maintain, stay healthy, but never give up. Never give up.
Never give up. This is an example of why you don't need to give up. She's a living, breathing, walking miracle who defied the odds and said, MS is not, MS, I may have MS, but MS is not who I am. And with that, we want to thank you for joining us today on the Black MS Narrative Project podcast. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, and telling someone else about this because we want this to become a movement.
All right. Let's heal together.
Let's heal together.